Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Dave Emmons and A Strange Reality. And my co host today is Gypsy Jewels Woods. That's her full name, but we just call her Gypsy Jewels. She's been on a couple of shows before. A very impressive gal. She's got some projects that she'll mention, I guess, as we go through. There's some TV projects she's working on. And I saw a few pictures of that too, of the people. It looked like it was cold where you were at. And I thought, wow. But no, on this show, we talk about a little bit of everything. And we have different topics, different subjects. And we're going to be talking about Tartarian before long and the culture there. And then we're going to be talking about conspiracies. So we're going to kind of mix it up with the UFOs. I've been having UFO people. I've had Philip Mantle. I've had, also Dr. Irina Scott just on the other day from the UK. And I also had Philip Kinsella. I had him on the show last week also. And so I'm happy with the participation that people are showing on Facebook, and we're getting some numbers. And on Facebook, it's hard to get numbers, and YouTube too, because of certain reasons, because of First Amendment type things. And that's just for entertainment purposes only, but usually that'll happen. But Gypsy Jewels, her passion for treasure hunting, she bought her first metal detector over 25 years ago, and she's been running into things in Texas and where she goes. And she started it on beaches in Galveston, and she's searching for rings and coins. So she started that way. But now Gypsy's been involved in TV, got a couple of TV show projects. She might mention them real quick here while we're going through this interview. And she's been on Beyond Oak Island, and that's the show after the show. And then Gold Rush, Freddie Dodge's Mine Rescue. She's been on that show. She's been metal detecting. She's an influencer, TV personality, YouTuber, and speaker. So she'll be joining in pretty soon, and we'll be getting to our guest now, and which is we're going to be covering. If people are ever interested in those crystal skulls, this man here, I met him back in 2011 in St. Louis, and I saw one of his demonstrations or one of his shows, and I was impressed with him. I knew some people there, uh, and I was impressed with those skulls. And I actually, after that, uh, his name's Joshua, and it's Shapiro, and he is in the Crystal Skull Explorers group, and that's part of his whole tag there too. But I ran into him and I saw these crystal skulls. I went out and bought a small one just for the heck of it. I thought, wow, that's pretty neat. But I'll have you answer some questions I got about the amethyst and stuff like that. I know Gypsy also probably has some questions. In 2022, Joshua initiated a new spiritual center called the Center for the Advancement of Humanity. He plans to set up the center within a physical building somewhere between Orlando and Tampa. Beautiful. It will be basically to support and create through all forms of media possible the most important information about the paranormal, various world mysteries. So actually, Joshua gets into ETs, mysteries, paranormal, everything else besides semi-precious jewels and the skulls. And the skulls are actually like ET related. We mentioned that before the show. And the truth about the world and its history, as well as set up sister centers all over the world and sponsors public conferences, talks, and other events. Two key characteristics which will distinguish this center from others is the research and information sharing related to the crystal skulls. Great. And direct contact with various galactic races to share their higher wisdom and knowledge. For now, Joshua is holding energetically the essence of the center and its present online via a website, glasses, with a video channel on Rumble and a channel on Telegram. And soon he will have a channel on new spiritual media network known as Light Media and Beyond. Joshua also offers to our viewers 9 free ebooks on a variety of subjects that will be covered by the center and be covered probably today in this interview. And so you can send him an email and we'll get to that. Joshua, tell us a little bit about that. Uh, uh, Joshua, we'll let you kind of, ad lib on this bio and what you're doing now and how you feel about things going forward with this ET thing and with the chaos that we have. You might make a word or a mention on that. Go ahead. Joshua Shapiro is our guest.
Thank you, first of all, Dave and Gypsy, for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. I'm a typical Aries, and I have been since my early 20s. I just turned 69, so I'm an Aries, April 17th, uh, to explore everything that interests me, but I also feel that it is very important to share back with people what I find. And so that's why I've written books, do public talks, do interviews like this, whatever way I can to share information. Um, I do the best that I can, and I seem to be good at it. So like when I do my public talks, I become entertaining. Something takes me over. I become animated. So I'm going to warn your viewers, I'll probably become animated during our interview
I,
because I'm very passionate about sharing, but it's almost like there's an energy that takes me over, a childlike energy. So just
well,
to kind of warn.
if you disappear, I think Gypsy and I both would jump off the show.
Well, I don't think I'll be disappearing anytime soon because I feel like I've only just begun to do the spiritual work
Right.
that I volunteered to do before I was born. So I've been involved with the crystal skull since 1983. I saw my first one, which was an amethyst skull, which I think I sent you some pictures
Right.
you'll be showing later, called a me. And a me basically got me started on this path as a crystal skull explorer. And I continue to try to help to educate people. I also have a contact in India where I'm selling crystal skulls too. So this helps to facilitate people who feel like, well, Joshua, you're having so much fun. I call them my crystal kids. With your crystal kids, I want to have one of my own. So I'm able to help people with that. Plus also I help to activate the skull before they get it. And my beloved wife, Katrina, who passed from cancer in November, she's right here next to me with this, and probably I will be getting some things from her. And she does make her presence known, and I have very many, I call them soul family or extended soul that say, oh yeah, we pick her up. She's right around you. So it's almost like we're continuing what we started together when I met her 14, 15 years ago.
Mm.
So this is kind of the essence of who I am, and I'm happy to answer any questions on crystal skulls. You did ask me to talk about what's happening in the world.
Mhm.
I've had two profound experiences, which I discuss in one of my free ebooks, where I see our future, and I will tell you with absolute certainty, between the years of 2037 to 2040, we will have paradise. We will have total peace. It is in the process of happening, and nothing can stop this. This goes all the way up to Creator. It's just our destiny and our future. So
Mhm.
if you want to ask about those experiences, I can kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and I also know about Tartaria too, which you're going to be eventually covering as well. So we have a free ebook on that. So
Great.
I'm just a wealth of information, Dave
So
and
well, sorry
Gypsy.
about your loss. I know that hits everybody close. And
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Well,
Gypsy, the co-host, you have a question you want to jump in on and talk about what's going on?
Man, I have so many questions. So this is going to be a fun and fascinating. Thanks again, Dave, for inviting me on to co-host with you today.
You're welcome.
Because Joshua, I am so fascinated. Number one, with crystals and energy and spiritualism and kind of my awakening from mainstream religion, be growing up in that, and then kind of changing and awakening to who I am today. And I'm just so curious, Joshua, you said when you first, how the skull thing more in detail, how that came about and what got you involved. I mean, from what I understand, the skulls hold so much energy, and they can, just like water, can, and our DNA can hold information. Um, I would love to know a little bit more about what you discovered in your first encounters and then how that evolved in more detail.
okay. So the first crystal skull that I personally met is known in the world as me, which means friend. This particular crystal skull I saw only with a photograph. And yet with the photograph that I was viewing of it, it had a profound impact. I think it was the catalyst that basically started me on day one of being a crystal skull explorer. So that happened in April of 1983. I was visiting my friend Francois, who had the Ram Metaphysical Bookstore in San Jose, California, right across the street from Rosicrucian Park, actually. And she showed me pictures of this amethyst crystal skull. What happened to me was I started to feel myself vibrating inside fiercely, which I didn't know what was going on. And then shortly thereafter, there was a real earthquake in California, in Kalinga, California, which I understand is about 100 or 150 miles south of San Jose. And so the table was shaking that had the picture of the skull on. Now, what I've learned since I'm much older, if that's in 83, then I was 28 years old. So 40, so what, 45, 46 years later, whatever. When a person is going through their spiritual awakening, you will have a very crazy experience that will get you like, what just happened? What is that all about? You know, why was I there? Why did this, come into place? But actually, through the picture of this crystal skull, it was talking to me telepathically. Now, everybody has a different way how they hear telepathic messages. For me, it's my thinking voice. I'm not thinking this, but I'm hearing it in my thinking voice. And so I heard this skull saying to me through the picture, we are returning to help humanity to create world peace. So Joshua, now that you know about this, what are you going to do? Well, so here I am 40 some years later, still doing it, sharing lectures, doing interviews, writing books, helping people get their own crystal skull, organizing crystal skull events, just different things that come. Because what I have sensed from all these years is that these are very powerful tools that can help to bring forward our spiritual gifts and help us to get in touch with who we truly are, which is divine children of God. So what's really happening on our planet is people are waking up and we're recognizing that all of humanity is one family, and that as we start to work together in a cooperation and not try to convince each other who's right or who's wrong, but just share our knowledge and say, oh, this piece, I like that piece. I don't know if I agree with that, so we'll agree to disagree on that, but do it in a very friendly way.
Yeah,
Then
both of
we
you,
can't,
yeah, both of
right.
you are from states like Florida and Texas, and those states are already awakening. They're
Well, there's a lot of spiritual people here in Florida, and I'm meeting more and more of them, but really there's spiritual people all over the world that I have contact with, even in places that you wouldn't think there would be many spiritual people.
Yeah, some
So,
people, the audience, Joshua, uh, they want to know what it feels like to go through a transition, a spiritual transition. You said you felt vibrations, and you said you heard something from talking from the skull, crystal
right.
skull. Was there anything else that you experienced physiologically or emotionally when you went through this change? Because people want to know that, so it's
Right.
experience, so they'll know what it is.
Well, the key is when you have a spiritual experience, whatever it is, and it's unique for each of us, you look at it and go, what just happened to me? And are you willing to take the risk to find out what it is? Because it's going to go against what your family believes, what your religion believes, because it has nothing to do with any of those things. It has to do with a connection with Creator and with all the dimensional and spiritual beings that are around us. Because the highest truth that I've uncovered, which I can only understand it if I go like into meditation or inside myself, is there is no time and there is no space. Now, part of that I know because I have talked with spiritual mediums and I've talked to the spirits and they tell me this. And also now that I have Katrina here, who I think she's in an angelic realm, we have something similar to what we call is quantum entanglement. It doesn't matter where I am, I'm connected to her.
Right.
And I have some sensing from her because of my spiritual gift of feeling energy of like where she is. So when a person has this experience, it usually will shake them up. It will challenge what they believe to be their reality. So some people will just go, forget it. I'm not paying attention. I'm going to do nothing with it because I don't want to be different from other people. But then there's people like Gypsy, Dave, and myself who say, no, there's something here that's remarkable. I want to understand it, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to do it. So some people are experiencers. They don't question it. They don't need to understand. They just say, that was a great experience. I love it. And then they get more and more spiritual experiences. But I was a person who needed to understand things first, to explore, investigate it, so that I could figure out what happened. How is that possible? And now I totally understand this because I've had so many experiences, and it's like every day I'm in contact with spirit. I'm hearing conversations in my head, like suggestions, like the different projects that I'm doing now, or an amazing experience I had with my friend Spring Rain at the beach, where we watched this whiffs of clouds do magical things. And we were the only one that saw that because nobody else was paying attention. And it was
Wow.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But see, this is a daily thing for me. I expect, there's going to be something crazy that goes on, and I'm totally accepting of it. So the key with your question, Dave, about how do you deal with it, you just have to be open and say, something was shown to me, and I have to go on an adventure and a journey and see where it takes me.
Right. My
So that,
experiences started gradual from I guess, when I saw 6 UFOs, and I've been abducted several times, and I've seen several ETs. Those were spiritual, and it was a gradual change. I didn't start writing books until about 2.5 years ago, and I'm way beyond the retirement age, so I keep going at that. So that's how I'm getting into it, gradually, a spiritual thing in a gradual sense. But I've had my experiences being frozen and shaking all over. And I have to bring in Gypsy on this one. Gypsy, you were interested in the crystal skulls, and for Joshua to be talking, what brought your interest into this topic?
So one thing with treasure hunting, it and us not being taught the true history about our past, and I feel like the skulls plays a big thing, and we saw a little bit of it, in Indiana Jones when they were talking about the history and stuff, and maybe Josh can expound more upon that, because like in it, I think it ties into the Tartarian stuff too, and probably other civilizations that have just restarted over and over and over and over for who
Right.
knows how long, just here on this planet,
Right.
not included all the other planets. And I feel like that's part of, I think the skulls, even though I don't know much about them, I feel like I'm here at this time meant to meet, with Dave. I know we met for a reason, and getting to meet with Joshua and learn more, because I'm already, like here sitting on my desk, I've got this little quartz crystal. I think I found this when I went to Arkansas to some of the crystal mines for my birthday a few years ago. And then like I ordered this crystal online. And so I'm curious to know more about ways not only to activate, these crystals, but more importantly, I guess the history behind the crystal skulls. That's what I'm most interested in. Um, but also, like during Joshua's awakening with the crystal skull, even though it wasn't in his presence, it was a photograph. It definitely activated and connected and probably raised his vibration. It had a certain frequency to it, and I feel like everything is frequency. Like he said, everything's quantum entanglement, and we're all connected in those ways. And then by learning, I'm trying to learn to meditate more, and I'm
Right.
not very
It's
good at
hard to
it.
do. You got to relax. And
use
Right.
music, Gypsy. The music you
Okay.
love that makes you calm, it'll help you.
yeah.
Okay.
That's from Katrina, by the way.
E-
Okay.
e-
Wonderful.
Expanding on what Gypsy were just saying, she's wanting to know more about the crystal skull.
History.
You said there's 4 types of crystal skulls
Yes,
known to exist, and the history. Can we get
right.
into that, Joshua?
Of course. I want to come back to me. I did see the crystal skull after I was introduced to it with the
Uh-huh.
pictures. So a
Wonderful.
couple weeks later, some wealthy person came in town and I was invited, and I got to actually touch the skull. And then I forget, I think it was like 2001 or something. I went to where the Hispanic owners who had the skull at that time, and they allowed us to do research with that skull. So it was
Oh,
brought to
wow.
a hotel room. So I got to sleep with it. I got to meditate with one of my personal skulls with it. And so its energy, I feel I'm very integrate with it, even though it was eventually purchased, and who has it, the skull keeps crying out to me. I'm very unhappy. I'm not being shared with people. I'm just sitting here in a private collection and
Collecting
not being
dust.
Yeah.
right. Exactly. Okay. So the four types of crystal skulls that have come up for people involved in the crystal skull community. So obviously we have modern skulls that are being carved now. Like I said, I have an Indian carver. So because and they're not all quartz crystal, they can be all kinds of different gemstone. But in
Hmm.
order to make a crystal skull or a quartz skull, they need diamond tip tools because quartz is a very hard substance. So it
Hmm.
requires somebody who's very talented to do this. When a person does create that skull, in general, unless the person is already spiritual or working with higher frequencies of energy, the skull will initially be empty. It will be waiting for its true home, and we call it a guardian and not an owner, to
Hmm.
find itself. And if that person starts to work with it in a similar way as I worked with our skulls with Katrina, who is very good at activating crystal skulls, then they sort of come to life. They start channeling frequencies of energy. And also they start to take on an appearance as if they're a person that you can speak to and have a conversation with if you use your spiritual gifts. Like there's a living consciousness that will work through this skull. This is the only way I can explain why so many guardians who contact me say, oh yeah, my skull told me to call it this name, and then it's giving me insights. I should do this for this project, or I should go here to meditate with it or whatever. You know, this isn't just happening to me or happening to Katrina. It's like almost every guardian I talk to, they're having a communication with the skull. So what's going on has to be some kind of living consciousness that's speaking through it. And that's even with the modern ones. It doesn't have to be with these like extremely old ones that were connected to very old civilizations.
Right.
Well,
Gypsy, yeah, Gypsy, you
that,
alluded to that part, I think, with the skulls and having memory inside of them. That is that
yeah.
what you had.
And that just brings me, I just had this awakening there with what Joshua was saying, and it kind of vibes with like the pyramids and quartz and like a lot of the, holding energy and being able to maintain that energy, just like the pyramids of what they were made of and what they were used for, really used for, not tombs. But also, like you said, with the crystals, I mean, so many people that are spiritual now, that's what they use is to go beyond this veil and communicate. And to me, by them holding probably such high vibration, it's kind of like a tool to connect to the other side in a sense. Would
Most
you say that?
definitely. Oh yeah,
Okay.
most definitely. Most definitely. Like,
Dave, I want to ask you a question, Joshua. By my bedside, I don't want to look. I might look stupid to a lot of people saying this, but I found out that the amethyst was a very powerful crystal. I
mhm,
took small amethyst and I took two powerful batteries and stuck them together, on side by
mhm.
side with the crystal, and they're actually attracting to each other because the magnets are sticking there because they're attracted to each other through the crystal, the amethyst crystal. I've been having dreams. They're not any ET dreams or any, dimensional dreams, but they're kind of dreams that are kind of giving me signs and messages. And I had one this morning, that it kind of, I thought about it when I woke up. And I don't go to church, I don't, I don't like church. I mean, in a way, I've been to hundreds of them, but my wife likes church, and I have to kind of make a happy medium there. Maybe I can just go there and sit and, and just, put up with it. But I had this dream, and this amethyst, I think, was doing it. I had this dream of her and I walking into a church, and there's another gentleman that escorted her to a seat. And I went over and I stood there and I looked and I thought, okay, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to sit and join her in church? Am I? that's a big question, and I don't want to take that away from somebody. You know, everybody has religious rights in this country,
Right?
and what do you think about that, Joshua, and also Gypsy? Do you think I'm crazy?
No, the
No, not
crystals
at
can
all.
affect your dreams, most definitely, because they create an energy field. And apparently you have an affinity. See, people have different affinity for different stones. Like for me, I like quartz,
Mhm.
lapis lazuli, I like obsidian. But then when other people show me other stones, like when this carver makes skulls and other stones, I don't feel the affinity for it because those are the stones that resonate. So obviously amethyst is a very important stone for you.
Mhm.
And each type of quartz crystal can come in different colors, and the color indicates the quality. Like rose quartz is for the heart. Clear quartz really is clarity of mind, but it contains all the frequencies. You can have a smoky quartz, which is dark, which I think helps to ground you more and be more practical. And then amethyst, I'm not totally sure if it's it's a more spiritual stone because the color of deep purple
Right.
is a very spiritual color. So I think it brings in more spiritual energy. But
ET.
I want to get back to your
Yeah.
questions
Okay.
and not leave your listener.
Oh,
So we talked about the modern skulls being done by modern carvers. The second one is called an old crystal skull, which would be one that was made from 100 years to, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 years. It seems to be a more primitive type of shaping of the stone, like because it may have been done by, let's say, some of the Mesoamerican cultures that we find crystal skulls in. So they had more primitive tools in order to carve them, not even advanced tools like we have now. Then we have what are called ancient or very old skulls. These would be ones that are very sophisticated in their design. I would say the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull and even the Ami skull I talked about. I feel energetically those would be examples of two of the very old or what are called ancient skulls. And then the last category is what's called an imported crystal skull, which means probably it came through a spiritual medium and was just ejected through them into our reality. And we actually
Wow.
have a little tiny skull, which we named after the spirit that the person was speaking, the medium in Seattle, who actually today is the 30th. He's doing a presentation here somewhere in Florida, Michael Shane, where when this skull came, it came out of his mouth with like 40 or 50 other gemstones. It was not possible. He swallowed all this and regurgitated it.
oh.
He said there was an energy vortex in his mouth and everything just dropped out and fell onto a towel. And when this a fire opal kind of monkey looking skull came out of his mouth, everybody knew that it was for us to keep and share and become part of our crystal skull kids, as I called them. So those are the four different types. If we go into the history of the crystal skulls really didn't come into the public's eye until the late 1800s and early 1900s. What was happening is, like in the 1860s to the 1900s, all these museums wanted ancient antiquities, and they were finding some of these skulls around ancient ruins in Mexico and Central America. And so, or they would come from the indigenous people themselves. Soldiers of fortune would get them somehow, or people would come and buy them. But eventually they went into three major museums by the end of the 1800s. The British Museum in 1898 had their crystal skull, which is still there today. The Trocadero Museum had a crystal skull, which was hollow, that had, no, it was just hollow and not as big as the British Museum skull. These two were clear quartz. And then there was also some crystal skulls in the museum in Mexico City as well. I have not seen the Paris crystal skull or the ones in Mexico, but I've seen other ones. But those were the three areas that were talked about. And then in the early 1920s, they started finding more crystal skulls in Mexico and Central America. So like the Mitchell Hedges skull came out of Belize, and another crystal skull called ET came out of
Can I ask you?
Guatemala.
Can I ask you about the Belize? There's controversy on that. His
Of course,
Mitch Hedges, his daughter found it, and it
right.
found it in an ancient ruin, and then brought it out. Uh, do you believe that's really really true happening, Joshua?
Well, what I believe is, I believe that the Mayans, who are one of the indigenous people that seem to have great wisdom about the crystal skulls, that when that skull came out, they had legends about it. So whether it came out in the way that Mitchell Hedges says or not is not important. I don't challenge it because I wasn't there and none of us were there. But when I've been in the presence of that skull, it has such a powerful energy. It has to have come out through these ancient runes somehow, in some way, because I believe that it was first established in Atlantis. And this is where I remember it. Now, let me tell you a story why I believe that. So when the skull came out, Anna Mitchell Hedges claimed that she saw a light reflecting through a pyramid that had been destroyed by an earthquake. And so she said to her father, something mysterious is there. And so he got all the local Mayan natives to go and bring the skull out. So first they brought out the top part of the skull, and then they brought out the lower jaw. So she had this crystal skull at a conference in Dallas, Texas. This was the first time I got to personally see it. And while I was looking at it and having all these strange experiences and feeling
Wow.
energy and everything, and like with my eyes, I just felt like I could go into it into forever. Anna Mitchell Hedges knew that I was part of a team supporting Mr. Nasserino, who eventually becomes a co-author of my first book, Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, with Sandra Bowen, who was his student, and I was in relationship with Sandra, so I got access to this. So I'm just sitting there looking at the skull, and people are asking questions, and information that I've learned, I know I start answering. Anna Mitchell Hedges says to me, Joshua, could you sit here behind this skull and watch it while I go off and do something? So I felt, and I believe this now more strongly than ever, that the crystal skull worked through her to say, oh, I know you, Joshua, from Atlantis, and you are one of my guardians. So why wouldn't I have Anna Mitchell Hedges ask you to watch me? Because you used to do that. And like,
Oh,
as I say that to you, I'm getting chills right now.
Mhm.
So this is
wow.
what I feel was kind of like the connection. So what happens with people is, with these crystal skulls, you may start to have memories or sensing or feeling. So I know for a fact I was definitely in Atlantis, and I know that a lot of the wisdom and knowledge I have about the skulls comes from there. So I believe that it is entirely possible the story that's told could actually be true, but I don't think that's the important thing. The important thing is that Bill Holman, who is now the guardian of this crystal skull, who was very good friends with Anna Mitchell Hedges at the end of her life and totally helped and supported her, he's taking the skull around so people can have an opportunity to experience it. And I've met him at different places along the way. And Katrina and I actually in 2016, we sponsored him in the Seattle area up to the border with Canada, different spiritual centers in that area, so people would have the chance to experience that crystal skull. And many people had very powerful experiences with it. So logically, when people say, oh, I don't believe that story, I think it's all fake, are they really saying that because they don't want you to know about the special energies that are connected with that skull?
Right.
Isn't that what is the most important?
Mhm.
Isn't that it could be a catalyst to help you to totally open up to your spiritual gifts, to your creative gifts, to your understanding of who you are spiritually? That's what this crystal skull has always done for me. I
Mhm.
mean, the last time
I-
that I really had a private session with it was when the Indiana Jones film came out, and I went to Bill Holman's house and he let me meditate with it for 20 minutes. Those
Wow.
20 minutes will forever change my life, because not only when I was meditating was it so peaceful and calm like I was in heaven, but there were some kind of dimensional beings that came into the room that I sensed. And I think because they were there, they totally changed me vibrationally and spiritually. So now I'm pretty much not like a normal Aries. A normal Aries gets argumentative and thinks
Mhm.
they know everything and you should believe everything they say. No, I don't say that to your listeners. I'm telling you what's come to me, my understanding of my truth, but it's up to you to decide, well, this story Joshua is telling, it's too crazy. I can't accept it. Okay, fine. But this other thing he said, that kind of makes sense. I could go with that. So these beings came in, and they help me to be much more calm and peaceful, be in the neutral, and not judge individuals.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's
so
wonderful.
Gypsy, have you had an experience with the crystal skulls or
Not
crystals?
not not like that.
Mm.
And something that I just thought of while he was talking about that, I kept getting chills too. I mean, every time he'd bring up the skulls.
Right.
So, man, I've got so many questions. I don't know if I can think of
it
them
just
all right
means,
now.
Gypsy, there's one coming for you eventually, and maybe
Uh,
I'll help you with
that's
that. So
Yeah.
we'll have
that's
to
what
talk
I'm.
offline.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I was going to ask. And one other thing. So, like, for instance, why do you think that most of the time the skulls are carved with a human skull, and are there with other beings from other worlds, some carved in other likenesses? Is there any thought on that,
Well,
or
okay, so what you're asking is, why would somebody take a crystal and carve it in the shape of a human bone skull? That's really what you're asking me first. And
yeah?
why would there be some skulls that are carved that don't look human-like, that are alien, that look
So
alien? Because there are
there,
carvers making alien skulls too.
and that's what I was curious.
But there are
The
old
first one,
skulls too that look alien as well, or they don't look
okay,
human-like.
because if I remember correctly, like in the Indiana Jones movie, and I know a lot of times they play with,
Yeah, they did.
they throw it out there for us, and
It's
make it
Hollywood.
into, yeah, make it into something that's supposed to be not real but really is real. um those in one of the movies were of the elongated skulls, um
There are some
which,
of those too.
okay, I was
There,
curious if there really was.
well, there are bone skulls that are elongated, which I saw on Telegram, all different older cultures, like in
Oh,
Peru and Mexico, and
100%.
right. But also, I think there are some crystal skulls that may have been found that are elongated too, because they're going to replicate what the type of bone skulls exist on the Earth as well.
Right.
Right.
So the
Is it-
shape of the bone skull, to me, even in us, is very important, because its shape is what allows us to receive cosmic knowledge and information. Goes into the super consciousness, through the subconscious, and down into the conscious mind. So there's something about the shape. So if somebody takes a piece of quartz crystal, for example, which already is a transmitter and receiver of all kinds of frequencies of energy, and they put it into that shape as well, it has the potential, depending on who's working with it, and is ceremony done with it, or are they meditating with it, or taking it to sacred sites, whatever.
Mhm.
It
right.
has the potential to have very strong frequencies of energy associated with it.
Is
And
there
then,
is there one skull that's missing, Joshua, that when they find it, they can put them all together, and we might get the message from all 12 of them? Or are there 12 and there's one missing? And it's in your notes? Did ET make some of these skulls, Joshua?
okay, so you've asked me a whole bunch of questions here, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, first, Dave is asking me about the legend of 1 in 12, which shows up in our religions. And there's a lot of things, this concept of 1 surrounded by 12 shows up. So this also comes out with the crystal skulls as well, legends purportedly by the indigenous people of a master set of crystal skulls, 1 in the center and 12 surrounding it. So first of all, the skulls tell me, and I can't prove this, none of these master skulls have come out yet, Joshua, but all these advanced ones that have come out, and the new ones, are helping to prepare people that there could be a period of time where all of a sudden maybe our galactic brothers or sisters, or I'm going to throw another one at you, the inner earth people,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mhm.
may have some of these too, or have their own crystal skull that comes up in our book, Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed. Maybe
Oh,
they'll bring them out, okay? But for me, the main one that I have a connection to is a sky blue one, which have seen visions of, and I've been drawn to go to Peru for 3 trips looking for it. And what I discovered about it it existed in the past. It was real on the earth, but it's in a spiritual dimension right now. Because I
oh,
see it for me, like up here. Whenever I think about it, I just feel it floating up there, but you can't see it. So it has to be in another dimension. but what it will do is it'll float onto my right hand. Obviously, everything people are seeing is reversed. This is my right hand. And people can actually feel a powerful energy of it sitting on my right hand, like almost unbelievable. So,
Wow.
so I think that these original ones are not in our dimension right now. They used to be, because humanity's not ready to accept it
Not
and their
ready.
energy's too high. But we have thousands, like you're asking me, are there only, 10, 12?
Mm.
There are thousands of crystal skulls out there. That's not including the ones that are being made in a modern way. Like I went to a conference in Mexico City in 2009, and this is one of my books that I wrote about as an ebook and as a printed book through Amazon, where the local people in Mexico brought a whole bunch of skulls, and they're all sitting on this table, and I've never seen any of these. Okay, and there was probably like almost 100 skulls. From the speakers who were speaking, we brought our skulls, but also the local people from Mexico were bringing crystal skulls being found in the ground or near or by ancient sites. And Jaime Musan, who's a UFO researcher in Mexico, he has a rose quartz skull, and he invited and interviewed me on his show that they were making a building and it literally rode out of the ground. Nobody knew what it was. He knew exactly what it was. So he quickly made an arrangement to get it. And this was quite an old skull. And so they filmed me like meditating with it in his backyard. And it was really strange because out of this wrist I was holding, blood showed up, but I didn't have any wound or anything. But you can see in the video that was taken, like blood was dripping from my hand.
Huh.
So this was a skull that came out of Mexico. So really crazy things go on around the crystal skulls. But the bottom line for me is they're returning, as Ami said, they're returning to help us to create peace on this planet, whether it's to do healing, which is, I think, the most common phenomenon around the crystal skull is a form of healing that happens, or to enhance our gifts, or to help us get in contact with our inner selves, our spiritual self. It's like, and to the indigenous people, when I talk with some of them, this is a sacred tool. What did the Europeans do when they came to the Americas? They stole everything. So my friend Yoki Van Dieten, who had a crystal skull called ET that came out of a family on their property that was digging in Guatemala, she showed him an article where they found a Spanish galleon that sank off the coast of Florida, and there were 2 crystal skulls in its hold. So apparently they must
Really?
have found them with these people, and they decided, oh, this is interesting, we're just going to take it, we don't care what they think. So the indigenous people now are protecting their sacred artifacts.
Right.
So they're probably sitting on a lot of crystal skulls we don't know about.
Now, how old is the oldest crystal skull? Number one, and you mentioned dimensional. Is that same thing as ET? And then I think I'll let Gypsy follow up on what she.
We don't know how old the oldest one is. It could be millions of years. It could be hundreds of thousands of years. There's no way to know.
Mhm.
Like when we go into a site, we use carbon-14 dating to try to figure out the age of Oz. It doesn't work with gemstones. So the only way that we can get some sensing of it is maybe if we work with a spiritual medium or sensitive. They may pick up on, because these things will store histories of what happens around them also. And for my co-authors Nasserino and Bowen, when they were doing research with the Mitchell Hedges skull, they were taking pictures of holographic images appearing inside the skull when they activated it with color, light, and sound. Like they saw
Huh.
Bigfoot, they saw a UFO, they saw like a Mayan city with UFOs around it. So
You know,
go ahead.
that just made me, sorry, my nickname is Gypsy, and, people like ask me, where's your crystal ball, or are you
Right.
psychic or anything like that? And I would say no, but it just made me think, with these holographic images, how those stories get passed down, and people that could predict certain things were receiving, probably had these skulls or these, crystals within their, grasp, could peer into them, and they're like receivers of energy, and like these holographic images, and maybe foretell the future. And it's just a tool,
Right.
to use.
Uh,
Uh,
related to this, just quickly so I don't forget,
Mhm.
I keep having a vision inside myself that, and this may sound totally crazy, but I don't think so, that one day, one of these crystal skulls, we're going to figure out the right frequency of energy to fully activate it. And a holographic image will come and there'll be a person there and he's going to say, you know, I've been waiting for you for years and years to activate this so I could begin to share with you all the information and knowledge that's been encoded in this artifact, which would help humanity. So I clearly see that in my mind's eye that one day that's going to just happen.
Yeah, I want to ask Gypsy. Gypsy, you ever detected? You got a metal detector. You ever detected a crystal from a metal detector? Did it have energy or anything? Just it's a crazy
No,
question.
Metal
no,
detector won't
Yeah.
detect those, right?
it won't, but it's interesting because,
Dowsing.
everything, my mind is going a million miles an hour. I was just thinking, like the crystal, in a sense, is a receiver. I mean, it has energy held within, and it's also some type of energy. But everything these days are made with crystal,
Oh,
our
yeah.
computers, and it all holds energy. And I was just thinking when Dave asked about the metal detector, metal detector it works from frequency. And
Mhm.
that's what it does. It sends this frequency down into the ground to detect these metal objects. And then when that frequency is interrupted, that's when it travels back up a signal to your to let you know, hey, there's something metal down here. So interesting thought. That just gave me I don't know, just on frequency, and how everything is frequency
Yeah,
and vibration.
it is. You're right. Joshua, you want to go to your pictures?
Yeah, please.
About time we're about midway.
So people can kind of see what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Okay, now you can
Okay,
narrate
so
from here. Yeah.
right. Okay, so this is one of my most favorite experiences because it doesn't get offered to too many people. So what we see here is I'm holding with my left hand my personal crystal skull, which is called Portal de Luz, Portal of Light. It was given a Portuguese name because the stone was mined in Brazil and the carver was Brazilian. And the other one I'm holding, which hopefully you'll show another picture of because you can't really see it, is the British Museum skull. This took place in 2004 when the British Museum skull, as it's known today, was in the sister museum, which is called the Museum of Mankind. And what they would do is like every Tuesday for a couple of months, they would bring the skull out for people to see in this little cart that had wheels on it. Well, what happened is one of the man that was the guardian, he was working on a computer and he knew that I was a researcher. And so what he did after everybody left, he just lifted the lid up and he allowed me to actually touch the British Museum skull, which is like a no-no and totally forbidden.
Mhm.
Now, when I was doing this, the purpose of it from a spiritual perspective was my skull, which was free, a free skull in the world, could travel wherever, and had gathered all these frequencies of energy, was sending a healing energy to the British skull, which was in prison. So it was kind of doing a healing, but it had to work through me, like through my hands, the energy was going through my hands.
So
So,
actually, their frequencies were coming from that, just like Gypsy was talking about
yeah,
frequencies with everything. And I'm amazed that a metal detector won't pick that up because of the frequencies. But yeah, that's amazing. What kind of feelings did you get when you held your hand on both of those skulls?
I just felt a lot of vibration and tingling
Yeah.
sensation. And it was like it wasn't for me. It was for the two skulls to talk to each other, basically.
Okay. Let's
Wow.
yeah, let's move on to another picture.
So hopefully you can show the British Museum skull. That
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's going to be one. Let's see. Yep, there it is. So that's the
Oh,
skull I'm
wow.
touching. Okay. Now,
Okay.
in its form and shape, it's very similar to the Mitchell Hedges skull, except it's one piece. where the Mitchell Hedges skull has a separate jaw. Like if you put the two next together, they look similar. And actually, the British Anthroposophical Society had access to the British skull and the Mitchell Hedges skull in the 1920s, and they were trying to figure out which one was made first. Did they make this one first and it wasn't as accurate, and then they did a better job with the Mitchell Hedges skull, or was the Mitchell Hedges skull first, which is what I think it came from Atlantis, and this was the best they could do to duplicate it? So people have to wait till they see a picture of the Mitchell Hedges skull.
Joshua, what's going on with the eyes and the nose area?
Well, it looks like, because the picture that's being taken is from the side as if the eyes are closed, but it's not. It's just the way the eyes are carved on the skull, and the same with the jaw too, that it looks like part of the teeth is covered by part of the crystal, and there's a little point coming out of the nose. So this all has to do with who the person is that carved it, how they were inspired to do so.
Yeah. And you can find these skulls on any continent, any country, Joshua.
Well, I don't know if they've been found everywhere, but there's quite a few places they've come out of. So like Mexico, Central America, here in the United States, I don't know if they've actually found a crystal skull in the ground or not. I know in Tibet, in Mongolia, they've been finding skulls. I think when the Mitchell Hedges skull was brought to South Africa, the Zulus thought it was one of theirs, like they had had a crystal skull before. So I think maybe the idea would be that they were in Atlantis. When Atlantis sank, they went all over the world. Some things in Australia too, I've heard theories about Aboriginal people talking about that they had seen crystal skulls. Also, like in Russia, Love Russia, crystal skull was found in the ground. So in many different places, but whether in every country of the world, I don't know.
Yeah,
Can't
Gypsy,
say.
you need to go treasure hunt in Central America.
Yes, and I'm working on, Joshua was talking about some ships that were found, with some skulls on them.
Mhm.
I'm working on several projects right now. One of them is a film project where we're going to be digging up some ships. And I'm just curious because I feel like there's so much that's been kept from us with true history. And from what I've discovered with the, even some of the metal objects that I dig up out of the ground that doesn't mesh with our history that we've been taught.
Mhm.
So this is right in line with what I do. So I'm fascinated, and who knows, maybe I'll dig up my own crystal skull on one
Yeah,
of these
Very
days.
possible.
Yeah, and that's why you're interested in Tartarian and also conspiracy. It all ties together. Joshua, what are we looking at now besides a Chicago Cubs shirt?
Well, you see, I've Atlanta had on now since day one,
Mm.
and I lived in Atlanta.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is, again, that's the British Museum skull. That's in the glass case that it's in. And I'm holding Portal de Luz in front of it. And normally he's a very light smoky, like a light gray. And you can see how dark he becomes. So
Right.
again, because he was taking a lot of the negative energy from his sister skull. That's how he would call it. This is his sister skull. So I felt like he was trying to remove it, because this corner that they put this skull in, the energy was absolutely horrific. And not only did I take Portal de Luz and move him on the four, sections of the glass case, but I had four little skulls with me, and they all call me Dad. And they say, Dad, put us on the top of the glass case in order to help the skull too. I said, if I do that, they'll kick me out of the hotel and arrest me, out of the museum and arrest me. But they were insisting, and I learned I always do what they tell me to do, and it always works out just fine. So I did it, and the guardian that was in the room said, hey, you over there, what do you think you're doing? You're going to set the alarm off. Take those objects off immediately. So they only had about 10 seconds or 15 seconds to help, but I did manage to get them one in each of the four corners.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that's what we're looking at here.
Is there ever a display that goes around with, I guess, 10, 12 different skulls that makes the tour around, I guess, different countries, Joshua?
The only place that I've ever seen that many skulls is at one of my lectures. I have at least 13 that I'll take out,
Mhm.
or at conferences where there's probably 50 to 100 skulls.
Mm.
I mean, it's possible there can be people that have that many skulls, but it's pretty hard if you're going to travel to you know, take so many by air. It's better to just take them in your car and drive with them. So it just depends on who has the skulls. There are many people that have more than 10 skulls in their collection.
Right. You mentioned something about diamond tip drills. How could these people way back when do that if it wasn't ET related, Joshua?
It either had to be a very advanced civilization or it was tools gifted to them from the gods.
Mm.
So absolutely. The primitive people could not have carved so sophisticatedly, purportedly. Okay, this is my picture with Portal de Luz again. So
Wow.
so that's my Illinois Shapiro mode, as I call myself. Have I had similar to how Gypsy has it?
Yeah.
So, but when I do interviews, I just find it easier to wear the baseball hat.
Yeah. You guys have these adventurous hats. I got this sissy city boy cap.
No, it's
I
cute.
know Gypsy, you probably said, Dave, what are you wearing? Get a hat like this. I do have a Stetson.
Oh.
I do have a
No, I
Stetson.
actually like that hat,
Yeah.
Dave. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just an explorer hat, that's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Now, what do you want to say about this skull here, Joshua? Is there
This
anything
is Portal de Luz again.
and what's
This is the one that came to me first, the personal skull, and
okay?
um, he 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 has a big mouth. He talks a lot, and in some lectures when I was a little bit younger, I would throw him in the air, not that high, not like in the Indiana Jones where they're throwing the skull. That was all plastic,
Mhm.
but you know, throw him up a little bit in the air. Everybody would be in shock, and he would never drop. He only dropped on me one time when I was going to go do a meditation in front of this large stone door by Lake Titicaca called Amaru Maru. I dropped him and there was a crack that appeared in his back, but then it disappeared. So I think that was done on purpose. Some shift in energy happened when I did that with him.
Now, these things
Oh.
easily destroyed. Like if you dropped them 20 feet up on concrete, would they shatter?
Oh, yes, definitely. So that means when a modern carver is carving a skull, they have to be extremely careful what they're doing. If they make one wrong cut, the whole thing can shatter and they'd have to start again.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, let's see. I don't remember all the ones by, okay, this is another magic moment. So I'm glad that we were able to show these pictures. So I have in my left hand Portal de Luz, and there is the amethyst skull I've been telling you about,
Right.
me. This was the time where the owners of Ami brought him to this hotel room, and I was able to do a very powerful meditation with both skulls and sleep with Ami next to me. And we also had a meridian stress test system, which is able to measure the meridians in your hands and feet. So we did tests to see how Ami did to the energy of the person, and everybody was showing a great improvement. They were blindfolded, so they didn't know what they were being tested with. So Ami was pretty active there.
Now, I heard
Wow.
if you put amethyst in water, the power increases, so the frequency increases. Is that true, Joshua?
I can't verify that. I've never done that or heard that before. So
Uh, Gypsy, you don't have one of these skulls, do you? I mean,
No, but I've seen small ones in
yes.
crystal shops and stuff, and I almost bought one once, but I'm very curious now. I'm gonna have to talk to Joshua about seeing about getting one and activating it
well,
because
Katrina told me that we were going to have a conversation after we did this.
okay,
So
Okay.
I was just waiting patiently.
All right.
right.
Let's
And
go.
I've got a lot of other ideas that we're gonna have to discuss too,
Yes,
just going through
absolutely.
my brain.
Okay, another magic moment.
Okay.
So okay, so let me think about it. So the Sci-Fi Channel did this 2-hour documentary when the Indiana Jones film came out, and they spent a lot of time interviewing Bill Holman. So I was there when they were doing some of the interviews with Bill Holman, because there again, I'm with my buddy Portal de Luz, and we're doing some research with the Meridian Stress Test Device, and we had access this time with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. That's what's sitting on that kind of like blue, holding it up. And hopefully I gave you a couple other pictures so you can see the
Yeah.
Mitchell Hedges skull
The
better.
Mitchell
But you can
Hedges
see,
skull looks really clear. Is it really clear?
oh yeah, it's almost absolutely clear.
Wow.
It's almost absolutely clear. And you can see Portal de Luz, which is 10 pounds, is almost the size of the Mitchell Hedges skull, which is 11 or 12 pounds.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so this is where we were doing our Meridian stress test system. Okay, so this is another skull I have. It's called Rosalita,
Mhm.
and she was gifted to us by these Chinese carvers, and she
Uh-huh.
has a separate jaw, and her measurements are based on the Mitchell Hedges skull. Because what happened is this British production company came, and they were going to do a special on crystal skulls, like, you know, when the Indiana Jones film was coming out. And so I was interviewed by them, and they had a clear quartz skull that these Chinese carvers made from the measurements, which actually was sitting with me while they did the interview. So I contacted the Chinese carvers and I asked them, how much would it cost? Because I always had this dream that I would have a skull similar to Mitchell Hedges, you know, with a movable jaw, human-like. And I said, how much would it cost to have a rose quartz skull made by the, oh, rose quartz is very common. We'll gift it to you. What?
That's good.
And so that's what they did. They made the skull and they gifted it to me. And it arrived, like, I think on the day that we were going to do this trek from Seattle all the way to North Carolina on the East Coast and then go back. And actually, Dave, this was the trip when I met you in St.
Yeah.
Louis.
Okay, yeah. I
Is
remember that pink skull,
did,
and
did,
that's a synchronicity because I got pink shirt on. Usually, guys won't wear a pink shirt. And
no.
Gypsy in Texas, the guys don't wear pink shirts, do they?
Oh, well, it just depends. I always liked pink shirts on men's,
Yeah.
but that's just
But it
me.
matches the skull, so
Well,
this is my synchronicity, Joshua.
right. Well, then I need to wear more pink shirts before I talk with Gypsy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so this is how that amethyst rose quartz skull came.
okay.
So one other question while
Yeah,
he's getting the photos. What skull weighs the most? Is there a skull that weighs more than others in
there,
weight?
there is a skull. I don't know. I don't think it's an old or ancient one. I think it's a new one that's over. No, it might be old. I don't know where it came from. There's one that's over 100 pounds that I've seen, and I
Oh,
can't
wow,
remember
that's
the
big.
details of it. So
Huh.
there can be some very huge skulls that are made. Maybe that one was made in the past. I'm not sure, but I've seen one
Okay.
that's over 100 pounds.
Now these are
Well, that
crazy looking skulls here. Are they ET? What do you think, Gypsy? They look
yeah, I'm curious about that one in the
yeah,
middle, the
yeah.
yellow looking one with the
Yeah.
flatter head.
Okay, so you've already seen Portal de Luz, which is on the far right. You've seen
Uh-huh.
Rosalita, which is next. And then we come to Winema.
Winema.
Winema is called a Mongolian skull. And the reason for this is because there are crystal skulls that look like this that have been coming out of Mongolia and China, which are not human-like.
Hmm.
Katrina actually saw this. Some person in Holland had this skull and he felt like he needed to release it to someone else. And she saw it and I remember she saw it and she started going crazy. We have to get that one. I said, oh no, how much is that? How can we afford that? And so the person made an agreement with her on a payment plan. And I think after 6 months, we received this skull and she got the name Winema, which means female chief.
Hmm.
Now it's very interesting, just to give you an idea of this. I went to the beach on Sunday, a local beach by Orlando, with my friend Spring. And so we were sitting on our chairs on the sand and everything. And this was one of the skulls that spoke to me and said, Dad, you have never taken me to the waters of the ocean to cleanse me. Take me this time. You always take Portal de Luz or some of the other ones. I want to go this time. So I
Oh, wow.
took her and I cleansed her. And fortunately, she's a heavy skull, so I could have left her in the sand and the water wouldn't have washed her away. But I held her down in the sand to make sure that she didn't go away. So when we were leaving, Spring took that skull and was holding it and had to put it to her head, and she got really emotional and start crying with it. This one
Hmm.
could be very, very old.
Yeah,
Okay, we
that one
don't.
in the middle. Yeah, the one in the middle that Gypsy, I
Right,
think, is kind of like,
right. The
how old
other
is that?
we have no idea. Again, there's no way to know the age. I have no clue, you know, like who made this, where did it come from, why did they decide to make it this strange shape to it? But there are other ones that are like that. They're just called Mongolian skulls. And then the ones that are left of it are all modern skulls, with the one at the end, lapis lazuli, which
Okay.
is another large one we have.
Okay,
But this was taking place at Mount Rainier. And
Oh,
there's got to be a base, a UFO base in that mountain for sure. I mean, Kenneth Arnold, this is where he saw those first 9 UFOs that were flying in formation, was by this mountain. So when we were up here, I just felt a lot of powerful energies, UFO energies. That's why the
Hmm.
skulls wanted to be up there. They wanted to absorb all those great frequencies.
that's where you need to go. Metal detecting, Gypsy is up there on.
Oh man, can you
Yeah,
imagine?
yeah, yeah.
Right?
You find some good stuff there.
Yep.
Let's go to the next one. There.
Okay, so this is Puget Sound, which is by Seattle. Again, the skulls like to be near the water. So this was something that Katrina set up. And there is the skull at the end, but you can't really see it. It has a skull face with a point at the end. I think they called it a Lemurian crystal too. There's supposed to be
Huh.
these special crystals from Brazil they mine. They call them Lemurian. So
Huh.
again, we have Porto and Rosalita together. And of course, Katrina, it was Capricorn, so she always has nature things around the skull. So it's just her feminine touch. I really miss that. What can I do?
Yeah.
You know, I have enough trouble taking care of myself now to take care of all these crystal skulls too, but I do the best I can.
It's sad when you lose somebody close. I want
Of
to ask
course.
a question about the one on the right. Did it change colors? It looks like it got a little darker.
You're talking about Portal de Luz again?
The one that's on. Yeah.
It's kind of the gray one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's changing all the time. He changes internally, he changes his color. A story I'll tell you, we were in Poland. This was when I was with my Brazilian wife, and there was a lady who was an opera singer. And so we gave her Portal de Luz to hold by her neck. First of all, she said she sang so powerfully, she couldn't believe it, but Portal de Luz turned totally clear after she did that, as if he was
Wow.
clear quartz. So I've seen him change his color all the time.
Mhm.
Huh.
Okay.
So how can a solid object be changing internally what's going on in its color?
Yes,
crazy.
that's a good question. I guess that's also something I was going to ask you, but I guess you're wondering too.
Right.
Yeah.
So this picture shows our crystal skulls with a bunch of other people's skulls as well. So you can actually put them into grids and geometric patterns for their energy to work together. So
Wow.
like, for example, we had something called Crystal Skull World Day, which I think happened in like 2016 or 2017. There was a
Oh,
group in Quebec. They had over 1,000 crystal skulls together. All their members were collecting crystal skulls. They said they had 1,000 crystal skulls in that room at the same time.
It would seem more difficult to make a real small crystal skull rather than a larger one. Is that right, Joshua?
I don't think so,
You don't
because the smaller ones are, of course, more prevalent.
really?
So yeah, hollow crystal skulls are very difficult to make. There are
huh.
such skulls that exist where it's hollow inside.
Huh.
But it takes special tools no matter what size those skulls are, right?
Well, it depends on the hardness of the stone. Like I said, quartz crystal is a hard stone, but some of the other gemstones may not be so hard, so they might be able to use different tools.
Yeah.
So here's another picture of all of our skulls. It's at a river in the Seattle area.
Mm.
So again, they're getting washed by and cleansed by the water. So this was a Katrina thing to do. Now, if you look at towards the bottom, there's another Mongolian skull that Katrina received. We went to Sedona, Arizona, and there was a person I knew there that had like about 50 of these skulls like Winema. This one is called Tachula. It's next to the rabbi, which is the lapis lazuli skull, the blue one. And he kept talking to Katrina, you know, like on this wheel. And she was going like, what's happening? This is crazy. I'm not gonna pay attention. But then the person who brought the skulls, he went to that table of 50, grabbed that one exactly, put it in front of her and said, I think this one's supposed to go with you. Let's make an arrangement. And that's how it
Wow.
came to be with us. And then when we were at a fair in Billingham and had a booth, one guy came up and said, oh, I have one like that too. because I thought that was a unique one. And he brought another skull that was almost exactly the same as this one, same shape, except a little bit taller. So this could be that one. If you take your, yeah, right there, that one. There could be like 12 of those that exist, you know, like a
Wow.
set of 12.
And they had
So
the big eyes. Is that?
yes, so
Yeah.
that's not human-like at all either. So those two Mongolian skulls are the oldest ones that I have in my collection.
This
I'm not sure
green,
what,
this green one looks wicked.
yeah, I'm not sure what stone that is. That was made by the same people as Rosalita in China.
Oh,
They're very, very skilled carvers. Okay, so now we have a better picture of Portal de Luz. So that's from a side view. So you see he's very light there. So
Mm.
you've seen him dark,
he
you've
is
seen him
lighter.
light.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you can kind of like see layers of the crystal. I don't know when these layers manifested either. It's just like everything changed over time.
You know, there's a lot of inclusions. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes all these inclusions form because that's what's holding the energy or the information inside of the crystal.
Hmm.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
This is a little bit better picture of Rosalita.
There it is.
The rose quartz skull.
How, if you think they're really taking, the artist is really taking this from an actual human head and like an artist would copy it.
Well, this particular one, again, was based on the Mitchell Hedges skull. They had the measurements
Mhm.
and they were carving it based on those measures. So what they would do is they would have a gigantic large block of rose quartz and they would start making marks on there so they know where to cut it.
Mhm.
And then they'd kind of look at it and then they, you know, just keep going back and forth. To have the patience to do this, I can't even imagine it. It's got to take months and months of time every day working on it.
Right.
You know, and also another thing is when they start cutting the quartz, it's all frosted. You can't see what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so you have to polish it afterwards. If it wasn't polished, it wouldn't look like this.
Yeah, the teeth look like there's a couple of cavities there. It's just got
Well,
dark spots there. Maybe is that an inclusion or a something?
no, it's just the way that the rose quartz is.
Okay.
Yep. So I think there's one more picture.
There's one
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
think
wow.
I think this setup came when these people from Japan came to interview us, and I invited a couple of other people in Seattle who had skulls to come, and they wanted a picture of all of them together on a table. So this is a combination of, I think, 3 of us bringing all of our crystal skulls and putting them on the table together.
Wow.
I
So
think I
again,
saw
it works with grids, you know, and geometric patterns.
Yeah.
This is important for the energy of the skulls.
I think I saw this exhibit in St. Louis back in 2011, 2010, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But I've seen this before.
Could have been a picture that was online
Yeah, it could have
too,
been.
because this wasn't in St. Louis. This
Okay.
was in Seattle.
All right.
Okay, so that should hopefully give your viewers then a pretty good idea of what some of these crystal skulls are like. And,
Great
you
picture.
know,
I like that.
right. Well, most of them, of course, were taken by Katrina, of course.
Mm-hmm.
My hands, at 69, my hands shake too much, so I have to have other people take pictures for me.
Yeah, you're going to miss her more ways than you can count. Yeah.
Well, that's true. I do miss her.
Gypsy, any follow up on any of those pictures?
Man, I'm just even more amazed. I think it answered a lot of questions, but at the same time, it just seems like it with me, it just causes more questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes me
Well,
think of more and more stuff for maybe another time.
well, I'm the same as you, Gypsy. I continue to have more and more questions too, and I've been doing it over 40 years. So, you know, it's like there isn't one person that has all the answers. We
right.
need
We're
to work together
forever
and
learning.
combine our research and knowledge, and then we have a better idea.
True, so true. And we're always continuing learning anyway. And
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
fascinating
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Wow.
even your treasure hunting turns up some things in history that goes back. And Joshua, your takeaway on all this, I know I'm kind of ET oriented. I have a feeling that there's been several things going on in our culture and our history. They lie to us, so there's a lot of lies that we don't know what history really is all about. There's something, we had intelligent human beings back thousands of years ago. Things started around 460,000 years, and 260,000 years, Anunnaki changed our DNA, manipulated it. But since then, we've had some intelligent people that made some enormous strides in building and the pyramids and all this other things. Some of the things we can't duplicate. And Gypsy and I was talking about that Tartarian thing. It's fascinating and mind-boggling that history is repeating itself, maybe, and maybe the people that were in prehistoric times, they weren't so dumb. Is that what you're thinking? Could they have
Well,
all these skulls without those types of diamond drills, Joshua?
well, what I believe is we talked briefly about Atlantis. So I believe Atlantis and Lemuria existed in the past, and they were very advanced civilizations. But there seems to be a pattern with the Earth where these great civilizations all of a sudden decline or are destroyed, and then a new civilization comes. There is proof, since you mentioned Tartaria, and I've been looking at that too. And this is very, very difficult for people to deal with because Tartaria existed only 200 some years ago. Okay. And you don't find anything about it in any history books. Yet there's a lot of evidence for these advanced buildings, the cathedrals, the churches, the star forts, these antennas that are on buildings, like on Telegram, where they have some great channels where they're showing you like old pictures of big cities where they had these tremendous buildings that they all of a sudden just decided to destroy. There is a building where it has an antenna and it's sparking on the top. So it means that whoever tried to get rid of the advances of Tartaria and take their devices out, they forgot in that building to take out their devices, because a lot of these buildings were used for free energy. Like I believe the Arc of Triumph in Paris was a generator that took that energy and it broadcasted everywhere. If you go and look at a picture of that area from above, it looks like a circuit board with the arc at the very center. The Great
Interesting.
Wall of China, that is an amazing feat. But people from the 1,000 years ago built it. They didn't have tools for that, according to the history. How could they make that? But if the Tartarians were there, they could have easily have built something like that if they're
So,
making all these other buildings.
so I guess Gypsy, also Joshua, do these Tartarians come into our time frame and then leave? Right? Is that what they're doing? Are they dimensional or time travelers?
I don't believe so. I think they were real people, and they were tall people, and they were eliminated by the experts. Said there was a mud flood, that there was some
Yeah.
kind of flood that got rid of all the people but left the buildings.
Mm.
So
I personally think they used technology to destroy and get rid of so they could reset. Um, a lot of these people get greedy and they don't want free energy. They don't want peace. They don't want this. They want to just use us as slaves. And so it's like, okay, no, let's do this. We'll use this technology and we'll get rid of it. Let's cause a tsunami. Let's cause these mud floods. Let's cause these fires. There's proof, and it's even written in our history books when you go study these buildings, which, I'm sure we can talk more in depth on this in a future podcast. But they were, when they describe, these great fires that happened, that supposedly, a cow kicked over a candle, and, so and so was milking the milk cow and it kicked over a candle and caused this fire and caused this great building to just catch on fire. But it looked like it was exploded from within because there's debris everywhere,
Mhm.
everywhere. And I think that they were using these technologies similar to what they used recently, I believe, I believe like they used in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
I think they were using in California and other things because they can control and manipulate the weather. I think they can control, and I think that there's more and more people waking up, now, and that's what we're with more and more people waking up to the truth that we are a part of God in the flesh, that we don't need to be controlled and manipulated. Yeah, if that makes sense.
We
I
need
may
peace.
be getting ahead of
Yeah,
myself.
we need peace, love, and freedom, like our spiritual nature
Exactly.
has been throughout our history. But let me pose this question about why history is not. They're hiding history from us, Joshua. That they're hiding history from us from all this technology because that the elites and the powerful cabal, rich people, and military industrial complex, they don't want us to have be disclosed to because they're utilizing that technology against us. They don't want us to find out what they're using or what they have. I could be followed again on this one. I usually I have a stalker, and I get so I every time I mention this kind of stuff. But Joshua, you first. What do you feel? What do you think about history and because you've seen a lot of things?
Well, I believe at the core of my being that almost everything that we have been taught in school, including the true nature of our world, including the true nature of who we are
Mhm.
in our history, has all been lies in order for the purpose to manipulate people so they give their power away to the elite. But what's
Hmm.
happening is these cracks are showing up now. Whistleblowers are coming out. The truth is coming out, and there have been prophecies that eventually we would come into this period of time where all the truth will eventually come out. And so all your comments that you made, Dave, I feel are absolutely correct. And this cannot be held back. Tartaria is just an example that the true history of our world is not correct. So, we have these signs of things, and um, and the same with UFO disclosure too. I think we're really close.
Hmm.
From what I receive, I guess I'm kind of a channel to the galactics because I feel like my true essence is what's called a cosmic wanderer, which is what George Hunt Williamson wrote about in the 1950s, that it's a group of, I think, more dimensional beings who go from world to world to lift it into the light. So when I read that, I started crying. So when you cry, it's something inside of you saying, oh, here's the truth.
Right.
Now you know who you are. Um, I believe that our galactic brothers and sisters have told the elite or the governments, look, we're real. You're dealing with us. Um, and we're helping you in things and so on. So you need to tell the people the truth. And if you don't, we're just going to come out and do it ourselves. So what I keep seeing in my mind's eye, and I don't know if this is the way they'll do it, but in order for disclosure to be shown to everyone, the ships are just going to appear. They're cloaked. They're cloaked.
Hmm.
It's not to create panic and fear, but they'll just
Hmm.
show up everywhere. They'll start beaming a very loving frequency energy at the people so they don't panic and fear. And then somehow, probably telepathically, they'll just communicate. We're very real. We love you. We're your brothers and sisters. And it's now time for a new age of the world. We have technologies to share with you, and everything is going to change. And if that happens, then the whole world goes through a total transformation. So I think the disclosure may be one of the first things we see. And I think the Pleiadians, who kind of look like us, as I understand it, they may be the first ones that kind of show up.
Show
Because
up.
they're already walking amongst us. We
Mhm.
just can't recognize them. They
Right.
cloak themselves too.
Yeah. I wrote
Um,
a book, a sci-fi book I'm going to release real soon. It's about a Palladian love affair with a human man.
right.
So it's sci-fi action and all
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
Yeah. So I'm into that, and I'm glad, Joshua, when I saw that you're into a lot of different topics, and that excited me just to get into this. But you have so much to talk about with these skulls and with crystals that we kind of look at that. But I just wanted to open you up on this thing. And uh, my co-host on this show, Gypsy, what do you think about what Joshua just said and my quick comment?
I agree totally. I mean, it all makes sense. And then I feel like, that's what we're part of. I think that's what we signed up for, this go around on Earth, uh, was to help with the Great Awakening. And with each one of us and what we're doing, like Dave, with your podcast and your books, and same with, Joshua, I think with, revealing the truth about the skulls, and maybe all together we're going to help with part of that, and with what I'm doing, because it all correlates. And um I think that together, we can do great things together, and we're part of that great awakening.
Right. Influencing people to
Change.
be enlightened. And I'm sure Joshua knows about that
100%.
keyword, enlightenment. And Joshua, in closing, it's we're almost at an hour and a half. Can you believe that? It just goes by
Oh,
so
wow.
fast. Uh, Joshua, in closing, can you tell us where we can find your work and where we can find that one site that you're working on, the project that you're on, and tell us a little bit about that, Joshua Shapiro.
Okay, so the best way to contact me, I think, is through my email address, which is crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. Now, I also have a website too for the crystal skulls that I did with Katrina, which is cse.crystalskullexplorers.com. But if you email me at crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com, I can give you the website. I can give you a direct link to access the 9 free ebooks I offer, which include Tartaria, Crystal Skulls, Flat Earth, there's one book on UFOs from another source, what's happening behind the scenes, and the 2 very powerful experiences I've personally had that show me that this future is absolutely going to happen. And one of those experiences comes from who I am in our future by the name of Argus. He says he's me in
Yes.
2037 to 2040. So he's
Wow.
sending me images of what the world's going to be like. But of course, he can't tell me what's going to happen between now and then. He says, I experienced it. You have to experience it. Okay. Sounds
Right.
crazy that you could be contacted by your future self,
Yeah.
but that's what he says. So I see that. If you are interested in getting your own crystal skull, again, if you email me, I'm getting pictures and videos of all these new ones that are coming from India. There's one we have called Geronimo Golden Eagle Eye, which seems to hold indigenous frequencies. People love that one. So the Indian carver makes Geronimo Juniors and is starting to make an ET looking skull.
Oh, wow.
So there will be one new ET skull coming with a couple more Geronimo Juniors. So people can, just contact me and see. And we work on a payment system too with people. If there's one that's like talking to and it's supposed to go to you, I will try to work out a way to do it. And I also work with my kids to activate it. And I do what's called the Katrina boost, where I put it in my right hand and I just let Katrina move in,
Yeah.
and she gives all these energies to the skull.
Yeah.
The other
Wonderful.
things that I'm starting to do too is travel and do public talks between Orlando and Tampa. So if any of your listeners are in that area, or if you would be interested to co-sponsor and do something about the crystal skulls, we could talk and maybe we can set up an activity in your area.
Okay, great.
And then there's, of course, the Center for the Advancement of Humanity, which you gave a very good explanation about at the beginning. So I'm like holding the energies for that too. And we have a website I'm working on, but it's not ready to be shown yet.
Right. On a narrative on this show, I will put those sites on there for you and
Okay.
the narrative. Like in closing, Gypsy Jewels, you have a TV show. You might want to mention what's going on with you at this point in time. Let people know, what you're doing.
Okay. Well, I'm working on several projects, TV projects. One where we've already started filming. It is actually a reality show, but it has to do with the paranormal. But what I'm doing is I'm using the metal detecting to connect with the history of the property that they're investigating that has, known paranormal activity, and using those objects that I dig up at those properties, and they're using them to connect with, whatever activity is going on at that property. I'm also just getting going on a new project that I was talking about a little earlier about some ships. I won't mention exactly where. They're not in Florida, but that'd be cool if they were, which I know there's plenty of old, you know, ships, treasure ships, all types of ships sunken in Florida. These happen to be South Texas area along a river. But anyway, that's another TV film project that I'm working on right now as well. So a few other projects, and then Joshua gave me a great idea. I'm gonna have to
Oh,
pose later. So I'll talk to you more about that later.
All fair.
But getting some great ideas. This has been lovely. I appreciate you, Dave, for letting me be here with you and Joshua and talking about this amazing subject.
Well, you're welcome, and you know that we've worked together before, so this is nothing new to us except for your hat. Now that's all,
I
and I like the hat. I do have a style,
appreciate
but I can't hide and be a Texan. I don't even have cowboy boots, so I don't know how to do that. Josh,
it.
Joshua, any closing words for the people that might be listening?
so I'm going to go with this very simple idea that was given to me, which could help this planet with peace. So for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, imagine if the world had total peace, what would it look like for you? And just see that in your mind's eye for those 5 minutes. And I believe that if all of us were to do that, since the energy when we do something similar is a geometric multiple of the power, we could help to bring more frequencies. Plus, according to Katrina, when our brothers and sisters in the sky see us doing these positive things where we're working with positive energy, they see it as a bright light coming from the earth. So that will tell them that more and more of us are awake. So that would be
Well,
a very easy suggestion I make that actually Spirit gave me a while ago that we could all do easily to help the situations going on. And eventually the truth will come out, and the light has already won this battle between the light and dark. So it's
Great.
just a question of time till we all know it.
Yeah, good
love it.
words there. I want to thank everybody for listening to Dave Emmons' Strange Reality, and my co-host Gypsy Jewels Woods, and look her up on Google. And of course, our main guest here, Joshua Shapiro. Great information, great detail, and your topics are very widespread, and that's what I like about it too, because it all comes together somehow or another. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and goodbye for Joshua and Gypsy and myself, Dave. We thank you for listening to us. Bye.